there, this is Vinney Chopra again back with another great episode on our podcast in YouTube, all the social media. As you know, I'm Vinney Chopra from Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I've been living here for a long time, 41 years, married to lovely wife Kanchan, two children, Neil and Monica. And I'm the top writer or author of the two best-selling books, The Apartment Syndication Made Easy and Positivity Brings Profitability. And remember, our third book is coming out, which is on senior living investing. But thank you for spending time with me every week. And we are posting even 2 or 3 postings a week because we want to give you lots and lots of. So if you like the content, please share with other friends, subscribe to the channel, and give comments, likes, and give us 5-star rating. Because if you do that, we'll be able to hit that 200,000 download mark and so on. So thank you. And today we have very privileged to have Dr. Shweta Patel with me from Florida. And actually,
Hi.
I'm known her. Hi there. Hi, Shweta. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Vinney?
Oh, doing awesome. Awesome. Really excited. My birthday is coming up this Friday, by the way. Anybody listening?
Wow. Last time I think you were in Florida right around the time of your birthday.
Yes, I was. We celebrated in Orlando. Actually, we were there in Siesta Beach. My wife and I came. We are close to where assisted senior living we are building, Shweta, and we spent a whole week right there in Sarasota, Siesta Beach. I'm coming back again for ribbon cutting ceremonies for different locations now. We are building in 8 locations in Florida, all these ground up constructions, and very, very fascinated with everything. But let's talk about Shweta. Today is her day. She's been wonderful, wonderful person I've known. And she was lieutenant commander in the Army, right? Navy. That was Navy. And then also she went through the whole, OBGYN residency and the whole, education, and also then has turned into real estate as a side hustle and done really, really well also in the mobile home parks and investments as LP and a lot of things. So we're going to dig deeper into her story. Shweta, tell us more about you. Yeah, tell us, who is Shweta Patel?
And a constantly changing answer to that one. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show, by the way. It's an honor to be talking about who I am in front of someone like you, who has accomplished so much. My background, for the purposes of the show, I'm originally from New York, and I did join the military when I started medical school. I actually did the health professional scholarship program, and it was probably my first step into, and not knowing this, but trying to achieve financial freedom. It started that early, and my logic was, if I don't have student loans for medical school when I graduate, I'll already be ahead of the game. So joining the Navy was a really, really good decision for that purpose. But outside of that as well, I made some fantastic relationships with some wonderful people, and continue to remain friends with some wonderful people from my Navy connection. And honestly, wherever you go, if you meet somebody from the military, it becomes like an instant friendship. It's kind of just like the family that we now belong to, regardless of whether you're still in or not. But once I was done with medical school, I moved down to DC, and that's where I did my residency at Walter Reed, Bethesda. And I started to get more into real estate, actually, when I moved from DC to Tennessee after getting out of the military. And it was very much on a small scale. It was just renting new construction single family homes. It was more like I had a single family home that I purchased for myself, but then when I was ready to move, I didn't want to sell it yet. And so I was like, oh, I'll just rent it. And then I realized I can just keep doing this. So I used whatever tools I had with regards to financing, and subsequently was able to kind of put together a small portfolio of single family homes in Memphis, and rent them, but not by not living locally. It became an issue quickly whenever there was a problem, and I was the person that needed to respond, thousands of miles away, and also with a full-time job as a OBGYN. And I started to realize, I'm like, I still enjoy this, but this is not going to be something that I can scale too quickly on. And if I'm going to put in effort, I would rather it be something that has a greater return on investment. So that's when I started to look into multifamily, and realizing like multifamily has so many asset classes, and starting out completely, a rookie, I did some research and ultimately settled on mobile home parks. And I picked that because there is a unique thing about mobile home parks in that you can rent the spot like a parking spot, and the home can actually be something that's owned by the tenant that is renting the land from you.
Yep.
And in that scenario, it essentially becomes just receiving checks in the mail for a long-term parking spot.
Sure.
Which to me sounded amazing, because there was no termites and toilets that you have to deal with when you are in single family home rentals. And I really enjoyed that. So I purchased my first park in Florida. And
yes.
I also transitioned to Florida for my OBGYN career, and moved down to Orlando, and realized, okay, this first park is doing great. It is really like checks in the mailbox. I don't even have to say hi to these tenants. I don't even know who they are. I just, make sure I pay my mortgage and make sure I cash these checks. And at the end of the day, the profit and loss, and as long as I'm in the green, this is great. If I can just rinse and repeat this, then I'm good.
Sure.
So I purchased another park in Oklahoma. This one I didn't even see before I purchased it. I started getting a little ahead of myself, and but it was still all tenant owned homes. So I was kind of expecting to have the same scenario of just keep receiving checks in the mail, keep doing the accountings, and stay in the green. After a year of this, I decided I think I'm ready to play with the big boys, and then not just do tenant owned homes, but actually venture into a park that's larger and has both park owned homes and tenant homes. Meaning take on the responsibility of actually managing the park, not just receiving the check. And that's when I invested in a park in Missouri, which has actually been a very, very profound educational experience.
Actually, you mentioned it before the interview. Man, a lot of ups and downs, evictions and costs and bill costs, all that. Wow.
I think with the timing of my closing on this park, I closed on it the day before everything shut down for COVID.
Oh, wow.
And being an off-site owner, there was a manager on site, but the management was not optimal. And I was really dependent on them keeping me abreast as to what was going on in the park, as opposed to being involved and just kind of at least knowing, if not being the person that does all the work. Halfway through the year, I realized that people were not paying. And one by one, I think it's almost like a domino effect. Those that realized that other people weren't paying for whatever reason, they stopped paying, not because they couldn't, but just because they're like, well, no one's saying anything to that person.
The word gets out, and then seeing on television saying that
anti-eviction moratoriums, and I've had somebody actually, when I physically went to the park, knocking on door to door, trying to be like, hi, I'm the owner. Here's your new lease. You've never had a lease, and here are the new rules. And you're behind on your rent by like 6 months. And somebody actually told me, they're like, well, you can't do anything. You can't evict me. It's because of COVID. I'm like, actually, they were just completely talking without actually knowing anything specifically to this law and how it is applied in Missouri. And so in Missouri, the landlord laws were favorable, or the tenant landlord laws were favorable for the landlord.
I see.
Thank God. And so, and I had obviously done my due diligence with the state local laws about that. So I informed them, I'm like, that actually is not true. And I can take you to court and I can evict you. I'm not wanting to do that. That's not the goal. The goal is to just get caught up on what is owed and delinquent right now.
Wow.
And suffice it to say, 6 months later, having evicted essentially 60% of the park.
Wow.
And running on a 40% occupancy in the red for the past year. I've learned so many things.
You have, I can imagine. Yes. You know, I bet a lot of people watching us and listening to us might be in that position because COVID has hurt. I know my properties also C plus, B minus, even Orlando property also got hurt. We got, you know, special programs, the PPP loan, things like that to help the owners.
Yeah, and it's definitely, you know, for someone who was trying to avoid exactly all of these things of like getting more involved. I wanted to be the passive investor, but not so passive as other physicians might be. I wanted to be the medium investor, not fully active, not fully passive. And suddenly I was being pulled into an active role, and it was still very useful. Some of the things that I, you know, inadvertently had to do or go through because of what was going on in this park were some pretty useful lessons that I now can use in any state that I invest in, because I just understand how the local infrastructure works and how you can employ that to your advantage to help run your rental properties better. Like for instance, becoming really good friends with the police department.
Yes.
And, you know, sending them a gift basket and letting them know who you are and thanking them for showing up 7 times in a day at your park because of all the ruckus. You know, and suddenly you turn around and they're actually calling you, letting you know when things are going wrong, as opposed to us having to call the police. And getting in touch with the local utilities and municipality and knowing when tenants are not paying their utility bills as a preemptive way of knowing which people might need to be evicted, because if they're not making enough money to pay their power or water bill, you know, likelihood is they're also not paying the rent that month, and or they're getting ready to ditch and run. So
as what you know now, let's just see the crystal ball, all right? You know, what will Shweta like to see for next year and next 5 years in real estate? What kind of things you're going through your mind? Do you want to stay in the mobile home business or, you know, do some other commercial side like multifamily different or, you know, even other, you know, avenues?
So truthfully, the mobile home asset class is still very much the only affordable housing like asset class in the true sense. Where there is still the ability to live and have housing for usually 50% of the cost of normal rents. It's one of the few places where we can still also use things like Section 8 vouchers, HUD vouchers, and veteran support vouchers. So my ideal for this park would be to actually have the occupancy go up, but with the kind of residents that I really want for the park that were not there and that needed to be evicted. Like good people, good families, you know, veterans that are hardworking and they aren't looking to unnecessarily cause any kind of conflict or trouble. They're fair in keeping up with their payments. And you can feel good about the fact that you're also providing them a place to live that's affordable and something they would otherwise not be able to get anywhere else.
Sure.
Um,
Were you able to
so
get somebody local in the park who could really be like a resident manager?
yeah,
Collecting
you
rent.
want to you
Uh-huh.
want to know who? Well, first of all, I went through 3 park managers in
Oh,
like a month and a half. The first park manager quit because he was threatened. The second park manager quit because he was threatened. And the
wow.
third park manager didn't, they had, I think it was like they found another job conveniently. They're like,
Oh,
oh no, something came
wow.
on. I'm going to have to just resign. Otherwise, I
Wow.
really wanted to do this.
Yes.
Um, so strangely enough, I actually contacted the chief of the police department and I was like, any chance any of your guys wants to make some money on the side?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't think my tenants are going to listen to anybody else other than like somebody who is
The
an authority
manager
figure,
coming in the uniform to collect rent.
right? So, and I'm telling you, man, I must have manifested this person into reality because the chief is like, actually,
Hmm.
I happen to know the perfect person, and I'm like, this doesn't happen. Come on, like,
Yes.
no. The deputy sheriff from the county over
Oh.
he does his own rental properties, like a very small portfolio of maybe 2 like non-primary homes that he rents out.
Mm-hmm.
But he's familiar with just small level or small grade,
Mm-hmm.
fixing and handyman work, and he's familiar with the concept of collecting rent and
Mm-hmm.
managing tenants, and was interested in making money and had a new baby, and this would have been something on the side for him. So he's working part time, and
Awesome.
it's just so interesting to see that no tenant threatened him.
Look at that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so crazy.
And
It's,
he
I mean, I
probably
don't,
is very authoritative too. And
yeah,
he
actually, and
probably,
he doesn't even go in the park in uniform. He just, every day he drives by just to kind of
Mhm.
make sure everything's in order. And he called me. He's like, I've seen the residents like accost some of the vendors that will come by, like plumbers, electricians that are trying to fix problems that they have. And
Yes.
these residents would, just to create conflict,
Yes.
scare these vendors away. Like, oh, don't work here, you're never going to get paid,
Oh
or
my
don't
gosh.
show up here,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
um and he had said, like, I know that that's happened, but he's like, it's strange, every time I drive through, nobody seems to be outside or wanting to talk or even saying hello, and I'm like, I wonder
Wow.
why, deputy. um so
So
at least,
management definitely, Shweta, I'm kind of summarizing, definitely has been challenged. So are you
yeah,
thinking to get bigger parks, more expensive ones? I know like Dylan Marma, right? You
right.
might know him too. They've been buying bigger.
Right. So I think in order to be able to buy a bigger park, I think if I was to stay in this asset class and continue to try to expand in this, it would definitely only be if I find a larger park, because it would not be worth it to do another small grade park like the ones I have.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely it can give you direction as to where you want to expand. Let me kind of
Right.
take you to another place, which is like, as a doctor, what
Mhm.
are some of the passive investors look for? And do
Mhm.
you know some other doctors who might be really involved in real estate? Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that a lot of physicians are now finally realizing the importance of investing in real estate or having it be a significant portion of the portfolio, as opposed to the stuff we're always kind of, exposed to, like 401ks and savings plans from work. And maybe if you're trying to be a little bit out of the norm, stocks and bonds and precious metals. But um, on a grand scale, I think physicians are still pretty behind as to how much they could be doing. And I think that has to do a lot with time and lack of comfort and experience with it. So the whole passive and active investor, it comes from um, the the element of that is that if you aren't able to read up on everything real estate, but you still want to have a balanced portfolio and reap the benefits of real estate, you can be a passive investor and invest in things like what you're doing, syndications, where you're actually participating in a much larger deal than something you would have ever been able to do on your own. But with the convenience of not putting your own name on the line, your own credit on the line, and the stability of a solid return on investment that typically real estate brings. Meanwhile, not having to do any of the legwork at all, So that's another true check in the mail kind of a setup.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Yeah. And
full
so
time check,
right.
basically. Yeah.
It's definitely not a way to scale. I mean, because you are only going to get a percentage on return of what you invest. But
Right.
considering that most physicians aren't even doing that, and they're generating maybe 1 or 2% on their 401ks and their, in the stocks and bonds market, being able to get back like a 7 to 10% return is, for doing the same amount of work, is obviously a no-brainer. And with regards to, whether if physicians wanted to be more active, I know plenty of physicians that are in this field, and they've actually stopped practicing because this has become such a not more rewarding, but a financially more successful option for them for the amount of time that they spend. And truthfully, medicine, the entire infrastructure of medicine is changing, not for the best. Most physicians are feeling burned out, underappreciated, and kind of like we're not really practicing as doctors anymore, but more like healthcare providers. And our patients aren't patients, they're customers. And so it's deviated from what anyone signed up for in medical school. But I was just saying, like, the art of medicine is not as strong anymore. And so I think a lot of people are turning to other side hustles, like you said. And real estate just happens to be one that's fun and more successful than other areas. And oh my God, I forgot the tax benefits.
I know that was
how could I forget?
Yeah,
Like,
I was going to
for the
ask
longest
you that.
time,
And cost
I was actually just
segregation
doing,
and negative, all that. Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Offsetting your earnings as a physician by generating depreciation elsewhere. Yeah, it's absurd how well that can work out for you if you know what you're doing.
Sure. What would you suggest to somebody new who's starting out in, trying to get into, but not being able to do yet, getting into the real estate? What advice would you give as what you have learned so far?
It depends. If they're a physician, I would probably suggest that they reach out to me. And no, there's plenty of resources out there. And yes, I'm one of them. I'm more than happy to, kind of lend a hand of get started, and kind of direct people in the right area of what might be the best fit for them. Some people are going to be better at a portfolio of single family homes. Some people are probably going to benefit from a situation like what you do, which is you do the entire legwork and you are creating a company with each building that you purchase. And these people are shareholders of this company, and they get the same kind of a return as real estate, but without the ownership and headache of real estate. And so yes, they can definitely reach out to me. If it's somebody that's literally like non-physician, but any professional or anyone who's interested, I would recommend really, doing your due diligence on some of the basics, like how to start investing in real estate, your book, Positivity Yields Profitability, and Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was my gateway drug, and being at least a little bit more literate in the real estate language, and finding out what they can probably do first, and not to let money be a deterrent. You don't have to have large amounts of money to be able to start in real estate. The term other people's money is I've never seen that work in any other kind of,
Yeah.
business field. But you can somehow create a scenario for yourself where you have purchased property and are getting the benefits of that property without having actually placed any of your own money. And so
So true.
anyone can do
What you
it.
said. Even the banks, I mean, they give
Yeah.
70% loan LTV or 75 or 80% because they like the quality of the product, what you're
Hmm.
bringing to them. So they become partners. And then,
Hmm.
of course, the family friends, we call it in
Hmm.
506B, or
Hmm.
we can advertise and everything in 506C exemption, where investors can come in as the equity partner. So we have the
Right.
debt partner, we have the equity partner, and then the syndicator comes in the middle to kind of
Who
make it
does
all
the juggle?
happen. Yeah, do the juggling of
Yeah.
getting on the loan, qualifying, due diligence, all that stuff, and
Or
then
like in your book with the plate spinning
spinning
picture.
plates. Yeah,
See,
yeah,
I
five,
read it.
five spinning plates. Yeah.
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 So
No, let me ask you questions. How does your day go by then? You have full obligation of, your medical career. So how are you spending your time to really move further into the real estate also, I guess, because that's a tyranny with everybody who wants to get in, and then life comes on the way, job comes
yeah.
on the way, right? Yeah.
I definitely think having the right partnership helps
Mm.
a lot. As a physician, that is my biggest challenge. I feel like I could probably be farther in my journey in real estate if I wasn't working a full-time job that I also am passionate about.
All right, Shweta. Yeah, hey, what kind of podcasts or books are you reading that you might like
Yeah,
to share? And
sure.
what do you do for fun also?
Well, podcasts wise, my main podcast that I got in that really kind of drew me into real estate was Bigger Pockets.
Yes, yes,
And subsequently their online platform with their forums and all of the information and blogs that they have there. It's an excellent resource, especially
yes.
for someone starting out.
Brandon and
Um,
Dave. Dave Green is my friend right here.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Bay. Yeah, David Green. Yep, yep.
yeah. And as far as books go, um, oh, I'm sorry. I have one more podcast I want to talk about. One other podcast. If somebody's interested specifically in mobile homes, there is one by Frank Rolfe.
Hmm.
That's very, very good. And Kevin Buff. And then as far as like syndications go, your podcast, of course.
Yeah,
And there's also like Joe Fairless.
yeah. Hmm.
So these are all the people that I was listening to and kind of finalize which one area I wanted to invest in. As far as books go, I mentioned earlier, like my starting book was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
And Bigger Pockets has also started to become or not started, but they publish their own books, and there are several great books for people who are starting out in the
Yes,
real estate
yes,
area.
yes. I know David
Like,
Green wrote and Brandon Turner wrote
yeah,
good
yeah,
books.
just like
Yes.
the Burr method and all that
Yeah.
stuff, house
Yeah.
hacking, exactly. And then if you're interested in syndications, there's several resources there as well, including the books you mentioned. And I think you have two books about syndication, and the third book I think that's coming out for you is the one about assisted living.
Assisted living. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
So, and then as far as what do I do for fun?
Yes, yes. That's the fun part. I mean, we
Right.
work hard, we got to play hard and all. I
Yeah.
think just having lunch and trying to book. We are leaving for Cancun,
Yeah.
soon, but then we want to go again to Cancun with our family
Yeah.
reunion. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, the most fun is when I'm around my close knit group of friends, and wherever that may be, just picking up and going out of town to visit a friend is kind of what I do to decompress from a long week.
Yes.
That and then my dogs,
Ah,
spending time with them. Yeah, it's a sure way to get into a better mood.
lovely. And I know you moved actually. Was it last year or year before? You moved 3 different times.
Yeah.
The home and you sold the homes. I remember.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know another one of my strategies. Getting, the resources I have available to me as a physician and as a veteran,
Yes.
and using them to help me move along my real estate goals. So yeah, moved 3 times in 1 year, made, some decent amount of money on those home sales.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Also, you're doing some webinars, like free information webinars. You want to mention that to
Oh yeah,
educate the
absolutely.
people?
Thank
Yeah.
you. So as a OBGYN, I'm a huge advocate for women's health and for information, and women knowing the right information, in a way that's easy to understand and not delivered like from a doctor's standpoint, but more like a girlfriend standpoint. So I do regular Facebook Lives, on various women's health topics, just to encourage that level of awareness. And so I would love for anyone and everyone listening to check it out, and spread the word. If you know a woman, which I'm sure everybody does, they might find it advantageous.
Awesome. 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 No, it's been such a pleasure to really hang out with you, Shweta, and look forward to meeting you in Florida. Actually, I think I'm coming to Jake and Gino's conference there.
Yeah, in October.
Yeah. So that'll be
Yeah.
awesome.
You know who else is going to be there? Ted Lanzaro is going to be there.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So I'm
Fabulous.
thinking I'll probably grab tickets and come at least for a day or two.
Oh, that'll be terrific. That'll be very nice. Yeah. How can people reach you, Shweta? And then we'll wrap up. Yeah.
Sure. Everyone is welcome to reach out to me on Facebook. Just shoot me a message, or you can also reach out to me via email. My email address is shwe, P as in Papa, AINC. So it's Shweta Inc., which is the name of my company, at gmail.com. And you're also welcome to send me a text message, 301-655-7712.
Awesome. Awesome. It was such a pleasure. Hey guys, if you like the content, please share this, podcast, and subscribe, and also give us 5-star rating so that we can bring, really great guests for you. Thanks again. And I'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Shweta. It was a pleasure. Yeah.
Likewise.